Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Heating up in Spring Market, talking about being offer ready, which means you're pre-approved. You
Yes,
got everything down, Pat. You've
you're
already done
you're
all the
ready
steps.
to go. You're
You're ready
pre-approved.
to
You
make the
know,
offer.
yes, you're understanding what the price does to your payment, what the tax does to your payment. You get it. You're ready.
And now you hopefully get it. The offer
Well, in
anyway.
today's
No.
market, especially, I mean, there's too many buyers and not enough homes, so you will more than likely be competing against other people.
Yes. So listen to your agent and be open to, doing some wiggling around a little because, stretching yourself a little bit. If it's that house, then you might have to push a little more for it, at least right now.
Yeah. And be prepared, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we all want you to be prepared because we want to avoid issues that could come up that you didn't even know. Maybe there's something on your credit report. Like the main focus items, I think, to be offer ready are going to be monthly budget. What's your budget? What do you not want to exceed? And that includes property taxes, homeowners insurance, mortgage insurance. That way, the lender can tell you what sales price you should be looking at. Danielle made a good point about the property taxes as well. Be mindful of looking within your sales price because taxes can fluctuate from home to home.
Yes,
Right?
and then that sneaks up on you. And I think it's important to realize what market you're in, 'cause every area is a little bit different. So, if your budget allots for 450 is like your max, you can't really look at houses that are listed for 450 because you're going to have to write for, 460, 465 or more.
Yeah.
So it's being realistic of that. And that's when you have to lean into your agent because they'll know. And I've been trying to be proactive about reaching out. Some agents put it in the private broker comments in the MLS, but also I'll reach out and say, do you have any offers? Look, like this at the top of their price point. Like I'm not going to drag them there, have them love it, only for them to not be able to buy it. So, understanding what that budget it means to you and what you can get.
Well,
And having that
that's also a
pre-approval.
really good point, Danielle, because when it happens, it's going to happen at the spur of a moment. It might be a Friday night at 6:00. You don't want to be running around in the ninth hour trying to figure out if you can afford this home.
Right.
Ideally, you're going to focus on your budget. The next thing is credit, where we pull your credit, even if it's a soft pull. It's not going to act as a hard inquiry. We get to see your debts. We get to see your credit scores. That way we can avoid any derogatory information that might be in your credit report and fix it before you go under contract. Maybe pay down some credit cards to raise your credit score, to put you in the most beneficial interest rate zone.
Right.
And then really for us to look at and review your employment to make sure you're employed for 2 years. More importantly, how you're paid. Are you W-2'd? Are you salary? Are you hourly? This is a really important one that we're really seeing a lot of income fluctuations. If you're hourly and you're not working 40 hours per week, that could force an underwriter to cut your income. So what you think you're going to be able to use in income might not be used because you're working 28 hours one week, 40 hours the next week.
Right.
15 hours, that's considered variable income, and you technically need to be on the job 2 years when you're using variable income. So,
Yeah.
And this is why it's so important. Like Laura said, you have to have your ducks in a row. So you don't want to be floundering. The last thing I want to do as an agent is spend my Friday night showing you a house that you cannot buy. And that highest and best is due, at 7 p.m. and your lender's out to dinner. And your pre-approval expired, or, it's for not as much as we need. That's another thing. I mean, I tell my clients, if we're looking between 4 and 450, have that pre-approval up to 450 because I
Mhm.
hate having to like bug a lender like on an evening. Nobody cares that the house is only 425 and you're offering 425, but you can afford to 450. Nobody cares. If anything, it helps you. So I hate when I have multiple pre-approvals for the same buyer where it's like 400, 410, 405
Mhm.
based on what offer we're writing. It doesn't matter. And we're just making more work.
Yeah.
So
Well, and a lot of buyers think that if they show 450 and they're writing 420, that the seller is going to see that they're qualified for more and ask them to go higher. And that's not how it works.
No.
It actually works more in your favor because the seller is like, hey,
They're good.
they're qualified for more. So if something, you're not going to get declined mid-process. So
Right.
it does work in your favor.
yes, because I have found when I'm like at writing at the peak of what that pre-approval is, and then they're like, are you sure? Like, because then as a seller and a listing agent, you feel like one little pebble in the road will send this like all squirrely, one little thing, because they're so close. So you never want to appear that way. I think too, we've talked about some of the weird things we're seeing in offers, like no home inspections, appraisal gaps, these escalation clauses. I think this is where having, I know a lot of buyers don't want to do it, like a buyer consultation and really sit down and kind of learn about these things. But this is why it's important, because when I'm trying to get an offer in and I got 30 minutes and I got to explain what earnest money is to you, I got to explain an appraisal gap, which can get very confusing. And we're talking about escalation clauses and you're asking me if you can write a letter. Like, these are all things that we should kind of have a handle on.
I already know.
So
Before
with an
you go-
appraisal gap,
Yeah.
you're basically saying, I, as the buyer, have the extra cash to cover any difference from purchase price to what the appraiser says it's worth. So, and that's up to you. There's no set rhyme or reason. If you could only have, maybe you only have an extra $1,000. That's it. That's all you could cover.
Right.
But 5 grand, 10 grand, 7 grand, whatever it is, but you have to have the money. So you really have to sit and know. And that's where Laura comes in, just knowing this is what I need for my down payment. This is my cash to close and these closing costs. And here's all my things and my 1 year of homeowners insurance. So yes, I do. I have a chunk of money. I have 10 grand left and I'm willing to gamble 5 of it.
Yeah.
So, whatever that is, or we're saying, we're doing like the, buyer won't ask for home inspection things that are under 5 grand, but make sure you're comfortable with that. And you're not just saying these things off the cuff because you want the house. So I think it's important to
especially if you
really
saw,
talk to your agent.
Really old, furnace or a deathly old air conditioner, like things like that, make sure you're taking everything you see into consideration too. Because some of these houses, it's kind of crazy what we see, right?
And this market is calling for it. You have to do this for yourself and for all of us that are trying to help you, because it's also not fair to us as your team. If you don't think that it's necessary to listen to something right now, we're in the market, we're seeing what is happening, and we're trying to set you up for success. So the goal is honestly to make your offer stronger than 11 other people's. And the way you're going to do it is technically what we just stated. And ideally go through underwriting without a property address. Like, you want to set yourself.
Yes, that's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Having that.
I love being able to say that underwriting's done. Or mostly
and we
done.
also have a way that we can kind of see, are we going to, do we have a likelihood that we're going to get an appraisal waiver on a property that you like? Like, there's so many bullet points that each of us know how we can contribute to make your offer shine against 12 others.
Yes. And I will say, like, it's an emotional, I just put those 1 clients we talked about last week under contract. But it was offer number 10. So it's emotional. It's, you have to not just like on paper prepare with the pre-approval and all those things, but you have to emotionally prepare and commit that I'm buying a house. This is going to be frustrating at times. It's going to be exciting at times, nerve-wracking. I might feel sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
and do what's best for you. You know, I never am a big cheerleader for waiving home inspection. I hate that. I hate that people even have to do that.
Yeah.
But you know, we did see one house and they had like their maintenance records. I mean, the guy had a notebook by everything that he wrote down throughout the years. And I was like, you know, when you're changing your filter on your furnace religiously every 30 days, you're taking really good care of your house. You know, the roof
Right.
was new, the windows were new. So we felt confident. And, you know, you can get a home warranty. You can ask the seller for the home warranty. You can ask parents to buy you a home warranty. You can buy it for yourself. So it's $600. It's going to cover you for a year. So that does kind of, on those houses that have a lot of those bigger things that are done, and it's going to be just little outlet issues and some minor stuff. That's, you know, a great option to kind of explore so that you're ready for it. And I've had lots of buyers lately tell me that they're just hearing it from all angles, whether it's parents, kids, friends, uncles, aunts, colleagues, peers. Everybody is like, oh, you're paying too much for that house, or I can't believe you did this. And it's like, that's, you know, why don't you come look for houses then? Because that's the market that we're in. And, you know, it's nobody's business what you're doing. And you have to trust us as your team to get you to the closing table and do the right thing by you. So, you know, just kind of tune that out, because, you know, both of my clients that had this happen, one is a single mom, first time buyer, and she should be so proud of herself that she can afford to buy a house on her own, and they're ruining it for her.
Right.
The other one's a recent divorcee and like starting this whole new chapter of her life.
Right.
And she should also be very proud of herself for closing that chapter and like moving on. And I think then a lot of people kind of get in your ear, like, the house doesn't have appliances. What doesn't come with appliances? But it's, you know, the lender isn't going to steer you wrong if you cannot afford it. There's an appraisal, you know, it's, and they're not out looking at houses. They didn't see all the crap.
Yeah, and it's the same in terms of mortgages. Like everybody is, oh, well, we got this when we bought our house, and you're feeling left out over here because you're like, well, why is my interest rate so much higher? Well, again, it depends on how long ago did they buy? Did they build a house? Do they have 800 credit scores? You know, there's so many. It's like a fingerprint. Every single loan is like it's different, completely different from somebody else's transaction. And unless you're ready to sit down and get really personal with your credit scores versus your family members, you can't compare what somebody else got.
Right.
You can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you know, being ready is important. And I feel like we covered a lot of good, you know, points on that. And if you have questions, you know, like the team is so important. Like having that lender that your agent can call, or you can call on a Friday night, who, like Laura, is not going to be as upset. I mean, we just had one where you got to have somebody who's there and ready for you.
Yeah.
Right
and
now.
that can talk through it with you. Because like she said, everything's different, and every house is different, and the taxes are going to be different. And maybe there's an HOA different. And so
and on the other side, the listing agent, just so you know, as a buyer, when your offer is submitted, they are calling your lender. Like there are discussions wanting to know how strong you are as a buyer.
Yes.
And so
correct. And I'm having my lenders call the agent, or at least text them, because sometimes all those phone calls are annoying. So just a text, you got an offer from Mr. and Mrs. Smith. They're rock stars. They're ready to go. Like I have them through underwriting or whatever the case is. They're on top of it. They get me their stuff on time. This is going to be smooth. Just something. Every little bit helps. And then offer letters too. If you want to write them, if you want to write something, great. I would say, you know, right now, probably 90% of sellers aren't going to look at it. So, you know, I always get that question. That was a big thing years ago, writing kind of like an I love you letter and a pretty picture of your family or you and your dog. But now people don't want to see them. Nope. It's business. They don't want to see. They do want to know about you. So this is what I do. And I just put it in an email. Like, Mr. and Mrs. Smith are a young married couple looking to put down roots. They want to, try to have their first baby, and they could really see themselves growing into this
Yeah.
home, and they love the area. And just a little bit about you. Like, everyone wants to know, why are you selling? Why are you buying over here? Why are you doing everyone? So dropping
Yeah.
those little things
Snoopy.
in the email is a way to kind of get that across
Yes.
without,
Yeah, and
being
also
over the
keep
top.
in mind, it's not always about the dollar. Sometimes it's more about the personal side of it. Maybe this was a home that they've been in for 50 years, right? And
Yeah.
Right.
they want to give that experience to someone else. So it is important.
Yeah, that's why I like to drop those
Yeah.
little things in the email. Oh, speaking of, one other thing is, if you're talking to an agent, or when we do a buyer consultation, we're going to talk about lease backs. We're going to talk about occupancy date, because historically it's always been on closing. That's just when it's supposed to be. You are buying the house. You don't go and buy this from the store and then leave it with the girl at the store for 30 days so she can drink out of it. It's yours. You paid for it. But that's not how it is sometimes. And sellers want that occupancy, and they're getting what they want. So it's important to, maybe, if you can be flexible, that's definitely a conversation to have. Not everyone's comfortable doing that, but if you can be flexible with closing, that's going to go a long way in getting you that house. Because I've seen that time and time again, where it's not necessarily about money. Obviously, you can't be way low than everybody, but the brass tacks, it comes down to that occupancy and how long you're going to let them live in a house they don't own. So just something to think about. Weird stuff. But we'll let Laura's going to a family member's house, so we're gonna let her go.
So I think we're all getting ready to eat dinner.
Yeah,
one way or
dinner
another.
time. We all touched on some pretty good points, and
Yeah.
all right.
Okay.
Until next
And then
time.
don't forget to we have our thing next weekend. So
Saturday.
next Saturday, not this coming Saturday, not Easter weekend, but the following Saturday. So that's
following.
important. Hit us up.
Yep.
Make sure you get the Zoom link. Get together with some of your friends, family members. The more the merrier. Laura, that buyer I just gave you, I think that's when I should text him.
Yes.
Just the link. Like, why don't, if you can, pop on this, you and your wife.
Very good.
I think that'd be good for him, because they're like super green.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.